Over a century ago, a message was given. One that spoke of a world teetering on the edge of collapse. Chaos, corruption, suffering, and above all, a warning that time was running out. At the time, the signs seemed distant. Mere whispers of a future that felt far away. But now, those signs are no longer in the distance. They are here, right in front of us. And time is running out. This prophecy was not just a tale from the past. It was a warning for us, for today, for this very moment in time. But the question remains, will we see the signs before it's too late? Or will we be caught unaware when it all begins? In 1846, two young shepherds, Melanie Calvat and Maxime Giroux, were tending their flocks on a quiet mountainside in La Salette, France. They were in the midst of their daily routine, oblivious to the profound event about to change their lives, and possibly the course of history itself. What happened that day wasn't something any of us could ever truly prepare for. It wasn't an event to be taken lightly, nor was it one of comfort or hope. What they saw was far from reassuring. It was something dark, something terrifying. They saw her, the Virgin Mary, appear before them, but not as the figure of peace and joy most of us expect. No, she was weeping. Her tears were not those of sorrow but of warning. Her message was clear. The world was heading down a path of spiritual decay. A time was coming when corruption would invade the very heart of the church. Nations would abandon their faith. Natural disasters would strike. Famine would ravage the land. Society as we know it would unravel. But here's the chilling part. This wasn't some far-off prediction. This wasn't a warning for a distant generation. No, this was a warning for the world of today. For years, the prophecy of La Salette seemed like a distant story, something for the history books. People wondered, when will these things come to pass? Could it really happen? It felt like just another tale from the past, an old warning that might never come true. But now, more than 175 years later, those warnings don't seem so distant anymore. The signs are all around us. Natural disasters are increasing in frequency and intensity. The church itself is facing a crisis unlike anything we've seen before. And perhaps the most frightening part? The spiritual decay that was predicted. It is spreading faster than we can keep up with. The prophecy warned that the church would be torn apart from within. And today, we see scandal, division, and doctrinal confusion threatening its foundation. The planet is rebelling against the laws of nature. Morality is in rapid decline. We are witnessing the very unraveling of society itself. The question is, are we ready for what's coming next? But before we dive deeper into this unfolding prophecy, I need you to do something that could make all the difference. Hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait. If you believe that we need to awaken to what's coming, this is your chance to spread the message. Let's make sure that this warning doesn't go unheard. In 1846, Melanie and Maxim received more than just a vision. They were entrusted with a message, one that would eventually be sent to the Pope himself. A message that would change the way we view our world. Mary's words were not merely about natural disasters or the collapse of society. No, they spoke of something far darker. Something that would rise after brief moments of peace. A figure, a force more terrifying than any we could imagine. This figure, the Antichrist, would emerge to challenge everything we know. The prophecy foretold of a time of fleeting peace, a brief respite when faith would seem to return. But this peace would be nothing more than an illusion. A false sense of security to lull us into complacency before the ultimate test would come. And what would that test be? The destruction of the world as we know it. A time when God's judgment would be unleashed upon the earth. And during this period of devastation, the Antichrist would rise. The stage would be set for the final battle between good and evil. Maxim and Melanie's prophecies were hidden for years. But in 1999, they were uncovered in the Vatican archives, bringing a new urgency to their message. Could it be that the signs they warned about have already started unfolding? One of the most chilling aspects of the prophecy was the vision of a monster, an enemy of God, rising after a brief period of peace. The prophecy spoke of a king, a great figure who would bring some form of prosperity, only to be followed by a terrifying reign. The rise of this monster would coincide with the greatest crisis the world has ever faced. At first glance, this may seem like something out of a horror movie. But what if this monster isn't a literal beast? What if it's a metaphor for something even more terrifying? The rise of totalitarian power, global surveillance, and manipulation of society. In today's world, the fear of a charismatic leader rising to power, one who manipulates the masses and imposes control, isn't as far-fetched as it once seemed. We already see it happening. Leaders who promise peace and unity but deliver division and suffering. Could this be the fulfillment of the Salette prophecy? As the prophecy of Salette unfolds, it's not just a chilling prediction of war and disaster. It's a stark warning that humanity's moral compass is rapidly deteriorating. In the Salette vision, the earth would be shaken by terrible calamities, earthquakes, floods, fires, and society would crumble under the weight of its own corruption. Nations would fall into chaos, and mankind would lose its way. Sound familiar? Take a moment to think about the world we live in. Every day, we're faced with the consequences of our collective negligence. Climate change, record-breaking natural disasters, rising political tensions, and the loss of basic moral principles. What's happening now mirrors the warnings that were given over 170 years ago. The Salette prophecy didn't just predict natural catastrophes, it warned of the spiritual decay that would grip mankind. As faith wanes and corruption takes root, the world will descend into a state of darkness and confusion. But the greatest threat isn't just the physical disasters, it's the moral and spiritual crisis that will accompany them. This is where we find ourselves today. What's even more unsettling is that the Salette prophecy also speaks of a time when the Church, the institution that was once the cornerstone of spiritual guidance, would face its own crisis. Rome, the seat of the Catholic faith, would lose the faith and become a seat of the Antichrist. This would mark the beginning of a period of great darkness, where true faith would be hidden from the world. When we look at the Catholic Church today, we see signs that echo these predictions. Scandals and divisions have shaken the foundation of the Church. There are doctrinal disagreements, internal conflicts, and widespread confusion over the interpretation of sacred texts. Leaders, once seen as pillars of orthodoxy, are now questioned for their apparent compromises with the world. This isn't just happening in the Church, though. It's a reflection of a broader cultural shift. As society becomes increasingly secular, more and more people are turning away from God and rejecting the moral truths that have traditionally guided human behavior. The rise of moral relativism, secular ideologies, and the push for progressive values is replacing a once unified belief in absolute truths. Is this not a sign of the spiritual decay that was foretold? But the Salette prophecy doesn't end there. It goes even further, offering a vision of the very last days before the ultimate battle between good and evil, the appearance of the Antichrist and the final purification of the earth. It's a terrifying vision, but also one that offers a glimmer of hope for those who are prepared. At the center of this final conflict will be the arrival of two witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, who will return to the earth to stand against the forces of darkness. They will proclaim the truth of God's word during the reign of the Antichrist, and despite overwhelming odds, they will continue to fight for righteousness. But even they, the prophecy warns, will not escape the wrath of the Antichrist. They will be killed, and their deaths will mark the final phase of humanity's test. After their deaths, the world will be plunged into 3 days of darkness, one of the most talked about and terrifying aspects of the Salette prophecy. This period of darkness will be unlike any the world has ever known. The sun will be obscured, and for 3 days, the earth will be shrouded in complete darkness. During this time, demons will be unleashed upon the earth, taking on horrifying forms, spreading chaos and fear. Only those who remain in prayer, locked away in their homes, will survive this terrible trial. This period of darkness is symbolic of the deep spiritual crisis that will grip the world. Humanity's rejection of God's truth, its embrace of moral decay, and its pursuit of worldly power will all come to a head during these 3 days of judgment. It's a warning to humanity to return to God, to seek redemption before it's too late. But there's still hope. After this period of purification, after the 3 days of darkness and the devastating consequences that follow, a new world will emerge, one that is cleansed and renewed by fire and water. The earth will be restored, and the reign of the Antichrist will be over. This will mark the dawn of a new era, a time of peace where God is glorified and righteousness will reign. The signs are already here. Natural disasters are becoming more frequent and severe. We've witnessed the devastating effects of wildfires, earthquakes, and floods in recent years. But the worst part is that the spiritual collapse that was warned about is happening right now. As society grows more secular, more materialistic, and more self-centered, we're moving further and further away from the values that once guided us. Just take a look at the world around you. Geopolitical tensions are rising, economies are unstable, and global unrest seems to be spreading across every continent. The Salette Prophecy predicted this. It spoke of a time when nations would abandon their faith, and the earth would be ravaged by disasters. That time is now. If the prophecy is true, then we are on the brink of a great test, a time when humanity will face its greatest challenge. The world will be forced to confront its own moral and spiritual failure. The Antichrist will rise, and the church will go into hiding. Persecution will spread like wildfire, and the few who remain faithful will suffer. But even in the darkest hour, there will be a remnant of the faithful who will endure. And in the end, victory will belong to God. We are living in the time that Salette predicted. We are witnessing the collapse of societies, the rise of authoritarian leaders, and the moral decay of humanity. And we must ask ourselves, are we ready? Are we prepared for what is coming? In today's world, it's easy to dismiss these warnings as old myths, as relics of a past that no longer matters. But the truth is that the signs are here, and they are getting stronger. The Salette Prophecy is not some distant fantasy, it's a call to action. It's a wake-up call for all of us. The time to prepare is now. We cannot afford to ignore the warning any longer. The world is heading into a storm, and we must be ready for whatever comes next. The Salette Prophecy calls us to return to God, to strengthen our faith, and to prepare ourselves spiritually for the trials that lie ahead. As we reflect on the message of Salette, it's important to understand that this prophecy isn't just a tale of doom and gloom, it's a call to action. It urges us to prepare, spiritually and mentally, for the challenges ahead. The world we live in today is in turmoil, and there's no denying that the signs of this prophecy are becoming more and more evident. The Salette vision tells us that we must turn back to God, that we must seek His guidance and protection before it's too late. But how do we respond to such a profound and ominous message? How do we prepare for a future that seems uncertain and filled with danger? The key, according to the prophecy, is prayer. The Salette vision reveals that during the 3 days of darkness, it will be prayer, sincere, devout prayer, that will sustain the faithful and protect them from the terrifying forces that will be unleashed upon the earth. Only those who remain steadfast in their faith and keep their trust in God will survive this purifying trial. The power of prayer in these times of crisis cannot be overstated. Now more than ever, it's crucial that we strengthen our spiritual foundation. Faith is the armor that will protect us from the moral and spiritual decay surrounding us. As the world grows darker, we must become the light. We must be the ones who hold fast to the truth, even when it seems that everyone else is losing their way. Recognizing the signs. It's easy to dismiss the prophecy of Salette as an ancient story, but the signs of its fulfillment are all around us. As you look at the world today, consider the growing natural disasters. The increasing frequency of hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. These are not random occurrences. They are a direct reflection of the warnings given to us by Our Lady at Salette. We've seen the signs of the moral decay as well. Society's abandonment of traditional values, the rise of relativism, and the breakdown of family structures. These are all part of the spiritual collapse that was predicted. The Salette prophecy warned that the faithful would be few, and that the world would fall into a state of confusion. But it also promises that the faithful will endure, that there will be a remnant of people who hold firm to their belief in God. But how do we prepare for what is coming? The prophecy speaks of a time of great suffering, but it also offers a message of hope. After the cleansing fire, after the 3 days of darkness, there will be a period of peace. The earth will be renewed, purified by God's divine justice, and humanity will have another chance to live in faith and harmony. However, this period of peace will be short-lived. As the prophecy warns, humanity will once again forget the lessons of the past and allow corruption to take root. But that doesn't mean we should lose hope. The La Salette vision shows us that even in the darkest of times, there will always be a way to return to God. We are not helpless in the face of this prophecy. We can take action. The most important part of this prophecy is the call to return to God. It's a call for each and every one of us to examine our lives, our beliefs, and our actions. Are we living according to God's will? Are we prepared to face the trials ahead with faith, courage, and love? The time to act is now. The La Salette prophecy isn't just a warning, it's a chance for redemption. It's a chance for humanity to turn back to God and seek His forgiveness before the consequences become too great. But this will only happen if we are willing to humble ourselves, to admit that we've strayed from the path, and to seek His guidance once again. As we face these unprecedented challenges, the La Salette prophecy calls on us to become beacons of light in a world that is increasingly lost in darkness. By deepening our faith, by praying fervently, and by living according to God's will, we can become part of the remnant that survives the trials ahead. One of the most significant aspects of the La Salette prophecy is its message about the church itself. The prophecy foretold a time when the church would face an internal crisis, when its light would be obscured, and when it would be infiltrated by false teachings. The church, which was once the pillar of truth, would experience a crisis of faith. In some ways, we can already see this happening. The controversies surrounding the church's teachings on morality, its internal divisions, and its struggles with secularism and relativism are signs of the prophecy coming to life. But even though the church may be going through a period of crisis, this doesn't mean that it has lost its divine foundation. The La Salette prophecy assures us that, despite the darkness, the faithful will always remain. There will always be a small group of people who continue to uphold the truth of the faith, even when the rest of the world turns away. This is why it's so important for us to remain closely connected to the teachings of the church, especially in these turbulent times. The church may face struggles, but it is still the body of Christ, and its role in our spiritual journey remains essential. One of the most fascinating elements of the La Salette prophecy is the return of two biblical figures, Enoch and Elijah. According to the prophecy, these two witnesses will return to earth during the reign of the Antichrist. They will proclaim the truth of God's word and stand against the forces of darkness. Despite the overwhelming evil they face, these witnesses will stand firm in their faith and continue to preach the message of salvation. While it may seem far-fetched to some, the idea of these two witnesses returning is not outside the realm of possibility. The La Salette prophecy aligns with other biblical and mystical traditions that speak of the final battle between good and evil, where the forces of darkness will rise but will ultimately be defeated. These witnesses are a symbol of hope and a reminder that no matter how powerful the enemy seems, the truth of God will always prevail in the end. The La Salette prophecy also speaks about the rise of the Antichrist, a figure who will embody everything that opposes God's truth. The Antichrist will rise to power during a time of peace and prosperity, only to lead the world into a period of terrible darkness. His reign will be marked by deception, manipulation, and the destruction of all that is good. Many people today are concerned about the rise of authoritarian leaders, those who promise peace but bring division. The prophecy warns us that the Antichrist will come in such a way, manipulating the masses with false promises. His power will be vast, and those who follow him will be deceived into rejecting the truth. But as the La Salette prophecy reminds us, even the Antichrist cannot prevail. The power of God will always overcome the forces of evil, and the Antichrist will ultimately be defeated. As we draw closer to these chilling prophecies coming to life, it's clear, now more than ever, we must stand vigilant. But how do we prepare? How do we ensure that we are among those who remain strong, faithful, and unshaken by the storm that is brewing. If you are feeling the urgency, if you believe in the need to act now, I encourage you to join us. Subscribe to our channel so that you can stay informed as we dive deeper into these ancient warnings and their relevance in our modern world. By subscribing, you'll be among the first to receive updates on the latest developments, as well as more insights on how you can safeguard your faith and prepare spiritually for what lies ahead. And don't forget to like this video. Give it a thumbs up if you believe in the power of prophecy, if you want to be part of a community that's ready to face whatever challenges come our way. Your support helps spread this vital message to others who need to hear it. The time to act is now, and together, we can be ready for whatever may come. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.